AITA for asking why another man was on my fiancé's secret honeymoon booking? I'm Edward, 38, and by the time this happened, Vanessa and I had been together a little over 4 years and engaged for 8 months. I used to think our biggest problem was normal wedding stress, the kind people complain about in group chats and then laugh about after the honeymoon. I was the guy who kept extra phone chargers in my car, saved every receipt in a folder, and believed that if two adults loved each other enough, they could talk through almost anything. I found out the hard way that some people don't want a conversation. They want leverage. When I met Vanessa, I loved how direct she was. She had this way of walking into a room like she had already decided the room was lucky to have her. She was funny, polished, sharp, and confident in a way that made me feel like I needed to stand up straighter around her. In the beginning, I admired it. If a restaurant messed up her order, she didn't sulk. She politely sent it back. If somebody made a passive-aggressive comment, she caught it and returned it with a smile. Back then, I called it confidence. Later, I realized confidence doesn't need an audience to be cruel. Our first couple of years were good. Not perfect, but good in the way real relationships are good. We had lazy Sundays. We had dumb arguments over where to eat. We had long drives where she would play old songs and tell me every detail about people I had never met. She could be sweet in private. She remembered my favorite takeout order, noticed when I was tired, and had this habit of putting her cold feet under my leg while we watched TV like I was a human space heater. So when things started shifting, I didn't want to call it what it was. The first small crack came after I proposed. I had spent months planning it. I didn't do anything huge or public because Vanessa had always said she hated cheesy public proposals. I chose a quiet evening, made dinner, and proposed at home with candles on the counter and the playlist from our first road trip playing softly in the background. She cried when she saw the ring. She said yes immediately. For about 10 minutes, I thought it was one of the happiest nights of my life. Then she looked at the ring a second time. She smiled carefully and said, "It's not embarrassing. I just thought you knew me well enough to go a little bigger." I remember standing there with the champagne bottle in my hand, not knowing what to do with my face. She must have seen it because she kissed my cheek and said, "I love it. I do. I'm just being honest." I told myself honesty was good. I told myself she was allowed to have complicated feelings. I told myself the ring didn't matter as much as the marriage. But the next morning, she took pictures of it from angles that made it look bigger, then sent them to her friends. I know that because she showed me the pictures and laughed, saying, "See? Presentation matters." That became the theme of our engagement. Presentation mattered. Optics mattered. How things looked mattered more than how things felt. At first, wedding planning seemed normal. We made a guest list. We met with a planner. We talked about food, music, flowers, deposits, and dates. I had saved for the wedding, and Vanessa had too. We also created a joint wedding fund so we could track shared expenses. I wanted us both to feel involved and informed. Vanessa said she liked that idea. Her mother, Linda, did not. Linda had a polished way of making an insult sound like advice. She never yelled. She never slammed doors. She would just tilt her head, touch her necklace, and say something that made you feel cheap for having a boundary. The first time we all looked at the wedding budget together, Linda scanned the spreadsheet like it was a disappointing report card. "A bride should never feel like she has to negotiate her own value," she said. I looked at Vanessa, expecting her to say something. She didn't. She just stared down at her iced tea and stirred it even though there was nothing left to stir. I said, "A budget is not an insult." Linda smiled. "Of course not. But marriage is when a man stops thinking like a boyfriend and starts acting like a provider." I should have said more. I should have told her right then that Vanessa and I were partners, not a performance for her mother to grade. Instead, I tried to keep the peace. That was my mistake for a long time. I kept confusing peace with silence. The wedding budget started changing in small ways. A guest list that was supposed to be manageable grew by 20 people because Vanessa said some family friends would be hurt forever if they weren't invited. Flowers became more expensive because the original ones were fine, but not memorable. The photographer package upgraded because we only do this once. Every time I asked what we were cutting to make room for the upgrade, Vanessa acted like I had walked into the room carrying a calculator and a bucket of cold water. "Why do you always turn emotional moments into money conversations?" she asked one night, while sitting cross-legged on the couch, laptop open in front of her. Because the emotional moments have invoices attached, I said. She shut the laptop a little too hard. That was when she started using phrases like emotional generosity and prove you're ready. If I asked for a receipt, she said I didn't trust her. If I asked why Linda had been copied on an email, but I hadn't, Vanessa said I was picking a fight. If I suggested we keep the wedding closer to the budget we both agreed to, she said I was acting like a roommate, not a future husband. Then came Caleb. Caleb had been in Vanessa's life before me. She always described him as a close friend, someone who had been there during a rough patch years ago. I wasn't thrilled about him, but I also didn't want to be the jealous guy who couldn't handle his fiancée having male friends. For most of our relationship, Caleb was just around. He liked her posts quickly. He sent birthday texts. He showed up at group events and gave me that casual handshake men give each other when neither of them knows how much the other one knows. During wedding planning, his name came up more. Caleb gets why this matters without needing a spreadsheet, Vanessa said one night after I asked about a vendor invoice. I looked up from my laptop. Then maybe Caleb can explain why the spreadsheet keeps changing. She rolled her eyes. That's exactly what I mean. You make everything so small. It got under my skin more than I admitted. Not because I thought Vanessa was cheating physically. I didn't have proof of that, and I'm not going to pretend I did. It was something else. Caleb became the imaginary version of a man she used against me. He understood without asking. He supported without questioning. He apparently knew how to be emotionally generous in ways I didn't. When her phone buzzed late at night, and she turned the screen down, I noticed. When she smiled at a message and then said it was nothing, I noticed. When she accused me of being controlling before I even asked who it was, I really noticed. Still, I tried to talk to her privately. One Saturday morning, after a wedding planner email came in with a higher balance than I expected, I made coffee and asked Vanessa if we could go over everything again. She was standing at the counter in one of my old t-shirts, scrolling her phone. Again, she said. Yes, again, because this number doesn't match the last invoice. She sighed like I had asked her to assemble furniture at midnight. Edward, I am tired of feeling like I'm asking permission to have a beautiful wedding. You're not asking permission. I'm asking what changed. What changed is I realized I don't want to spend my wedding day apologizing for things being average. That word stuck to me. Average. Not irresponsible. Not unaffordable. Average. Later that day, I called my sister Monica from my car. I had gone out to get coffee just to be somewhere quiet. The coffee sat in the cup holder getting cold while I told her everything. Monica is younger than me, but she has always had the emotional patience of somebody who has already heard every bad excuse twice. After I finished, she was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You're not saving a wedding. You're auditioning for a marriage where you're already the villain." I got defensive because the truth usually feels rude when you're not ready for it. She's stressed, I said. Maybe. But stress doesn't invent a whole scoring system where you lose points for asking basic questions. It's not that simple. It never is when you love somebody, Monica said. But receipts before feelings, Edward. Stop arguing about vibes. Document what's actually happening. I didn't want to think of my relationship like something that needed documentation. That felt cold. It felt like I was preparing for failure. But a few days later, the banking app notification came through. It was an alert from the joint wedding fund. A withdrawal had been made for an amount that wasn't massive enough to bankrupt me, but specific enough to make me wonder why nobody had mentioned it. The memo line said upgrade package. I sat at the kitchen table staring at it while the dishwasher hummed in the background. Upgrade package. I searched my email. Nothing. I checked the shared wedding folder. Nothing new. Then I found a message from the travel coordinator buried in a thread where Linda had been copied, but I hadn't been included until the final confirmation. The wording was slippery. It made the upgrade sound attached to our honeymoon, but not necessary. That mattered because Vanessa had told me the opposite. The next evening, before our engagement dinner, I asked her about it. She was in the bedroom getting ready, standing in front of the mirror with one earring in and her phone buzzing on the dresser. I was in the doorway holding my phone, trying to keep my voice level. I got a bank alert, I said. What is this upgrade package? Her shoulders tightened before she even turned around. Are we doing this right now? I'm asking now because I just found out. It's part of the honeymoon. Part of it how? She picked up her lipstick and looked at me through the mirror. Edward, please don't start. We have dinner in 1 hour. I'm not saying no. I'm asking why I'm finding out from a bank alert. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. This is exactly what I mean. You turn everything beautiful into an audit. That account has my name on it too. And this wedding has my heart in it, she snapped. Her phone buzzed again. I glanced down without meaning to. Caleb's name flashed on the screen. She flipped the phone over immediately. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her. I just said, we'll talk about it after dinner. She turned around then, eyes bright with anger. No, tonight is not going to be ruined because you're anxious about money. I should have stayed home. Looking back, that would have been cleaner. But part of me still thought we could get through the dinner, smile for the families, and handle the conversation privately afterward like adults. Instead, Vanessa turned the dinner into a stage. The restaurant had a long table in a private room with soft lighting and too many champagne glasses. Both families were there, plus the bridal party and a few mutual friends. Ashley, Vanessa's best friend, sat near her and gave me a polite smile that felt strained, like she had already heard a version of the evening where I was the problem. Caleb was there too. He shouldn't have been. At least, I hadn't known he was invited until he walked in wearing a blazer and that easy, avoidant smile of his. Hey man, he said, giving me a quick handshake. Big night. Apparently, I said. Vanessa acted like nothing was wrong. She touched my arm for photos. She leaned into me when someone recorded a short clip for social media. She laughed loudly at her aunt's joke. If you had muted the room, we would have looked happy. But Linda kept making comments. When someone complimented the centerpieces, Linda said, Vanessa has such vision. It's nice when people support that instead of shrinking it. When my uncle asked how planning was going, Linda smiled at me and said, planning a wedding teaches you whether a man is ready to lead a family. I took a sip of water and said nothing. Monica wasn't at the dinner, but I could hear her voice in my head. Receipts before feelings. Then came the toast. Vanessa stood up with her glass in her hand. She looked beautiful, which made the whole thing feel worse. She had that soft public smile on, the one that made people lean in because they thought they were about to hear something sweet. I just want to thank everyone for being here, she said. Wedding planning is emotional. It shows you what people value, what they protect, and whether they understand what love actually looks like in action. A few people made little approving sounds. I felt my stomach drop. She continued, Edward is a practical man. Very practical. Some people chuckled. Vanessa looked down at me and smiled like she was teasing. Sometimes too practical. Sometimes I think he's still auditioning for husband material. The room laughed. Not everyone, but enough. My face got hot, but I stayed still. Linda was watching with a proud little smile. Vanessa lifted her glass higher. A real husband doesn't make his bride beg for the wedding she deserves. Maybe I should have put emotional generosity on the registry. More laughter. Awkward this time. People looked at me, then away, then back at their plates. I set my napkin beside my plate. Vanessa was still smiling, but her eyes warned me not to make a scene. So I didn't make a scene. I asked a question. Are we talking about the wedding? I said. Or the charge you made without telling me? The laughter stopped so fast I heard someone's fork touch their plate. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me. You made it public, I said. So I'm asking publicly. Are we talking about the wedding budget or the honeymoon upgrade that was charged to the joint fund without my approval? Linda sat up straighter. Edward, this is not appropriate. I looked at her. Neither was turning me into a punchline. Vanessa's smile cracked. You're doing this to embarrass me. No, I said. You started with embarrassment. I brought documentation. Ashley looked between us, confused. Wait, Vanessa told us that was a required venue charge. That was the first time I realized Vanessa had been telling different stories to different people. It wasn't a venue charge, I said. Vanessa laughed sharply. Oh my God, listen to yourself. This is why I didn't want to tell you every little thing. You make me feel like I'm on trial. I opened my banking app under the table, then turned the screen toward her. Who approved this withdrawal? Linda reached for her water glass. Some decisions are easier when the bride has support. I looked at Linda's face, then Vanessa's, then Caleb's. Caleb was staring at his plate like the steak had started giving testimony. I said, until I know what happened to the fund, I'm not paying another invoice. Vanessa's eyes filled instantly. She was good at that. I don't mean she wasn't upset. I mean she knew exactly when to let the room see it. You're ruining our engagement dinner over money, she said. I'm asking why money was taken from an account with my name on it. "This is who you are," she said, voice trembling. "You're proving exactly what I was scared of." I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking, so I put one in my pocket. "I loved you," I said quietly. "That's why I tried to talk privately first." No one spoke. I put cash on the table for my meal, even though I barely touched it, then looked at Vanessa. "We'll talk when there are receipts." I left alone. In the car, I sat with both hands on the steering wheel and felt the kind of anger that doesn't come out loud. It just goes cold. My phone started lighting up before I even pulled out of the parking lot. Vanessa called 3 times. Then Linda. Then a mutual friend. I didn't answer. By the time I got home, the family group chat had exploded. Vanessa had written a long message saying I humiliated her because I didn't want to give her a beautiful wedding. She said I had abandoned her at our own engagement dinner. She said she was heartbroken that I had turned one small honeymoon detail into a public attack. Linda followed with, "If Edward wants to save this, he owes my daughter a public apology. A bride should not have to beg to feel valued." Then the messages came from everyone else. "Couldn't you just be generous once? Weddings are stressful, man. You embarrassed her. This seems like something you two should have handled privately." That last one almost made me laugh. I typed a response 3 different times. The first was angry. The second was too long. The third sounded like I was begging people to believe I wasn't the villain. Then Monica called. I answered, and before I could say anything, she said, "Do not send whatever you're typing." "How do you know I'm typing?" "Because you're my brother, and you think a paragraph can fix a public setup." I leaned back against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. "They're saying I abandoned her over money." "Then don't argue about money," Monica said. "Show what happened." "I don't have everything." "Then get everything. Receipts before feelings." So I opened my laptop. I started with the joint wedding fund. I downloaded statements, transfer records, Zelle screenshots, and deposit confirmations. Then I opened our shared Google Drive folder, the one Vanessa and I had created months earlier for contracts and PDFs. Most of it was ordinary wedding chaos. Catering estimates, music deposits, a photographer contract, venue forms, floral proposals with names like Classic Romance Package, which apparently meant expensive flowers in glass cylinders. Then I found a folder I hadn't noticed before. It was named Final Travel Details. Inside were PDFs, confirmations, and an itinerary. At first, I thought it was just the honeymoon upgrade. A nicer room, a private excursion, some extra meals. Annoying, yes, but not shocking. Then I saw a second itinerary attached to the same travel package. Post-wedding friends weekend. My eyes moved down the guest list. Vanessa, Ashley, 2 bridesmaids. Caleb, not me. I stared at Caleb's name so long the screen blurred. That was when the story stopped being about a bride wanting a nicer honeymoon. The itinerary had been bundled into the same upgrade package charge that hit the wedding fund. Some of the expenses were labeled in ways that made them look like vendor requirements. Travel coordination, group hospitality adjustment, post-event accommodation hold. If you didn't compare the dates, it looked like wedding-related logistics. But I compared the dates. The friends' weekend started after the honeymoon window Vanessa and I had discussed. It wasn't required. It wasn't a vendor fee. It was a separate trip attached quietly to the payment chain. Linda was copied on multiple emails. I found one message from the travel coordinator that said, confirming Linda and Vanessa approved the revised package, including the additional weekend block. I sat there in the blue light of my laptop, hearing the refrigerator hum and nothing else. Then my phone buzzed. It was Ashley. I almost ignored it. Instead, I opened the message. "I don't know what Vanessa told you," she wrote, "but I'm starting to think she didn't tell us everything either." A few seconds later, 3 screenshots came through. They were from Vanessa's bridal party chat, and a separate exchange Ashley said had been forwarded to her by another bridesmaid who was uncomfortable with how far things had gone. In one screenshot, Vanessa wrote, "Edward keeps pretending this is about budget. He needs to understand what it feels like to disappoint me publicly." In another, Linda wrote, "Men rise when the room expects them to." The last screenshot was the one that ended my engagement in my mind before I ever said the words out loud. It was a message from Vanessa to Caleb, time-stamped before the dinner. "If I push him in front of everyone, he'll pay. He hates looking like the bad guy." Caleb replied, "Just don't make it too obvious, LOL." Then Vanessa wrote, "He'll fold. He always does." I didn't throw my phone. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't scream. I just sat there and felt something inside me detach. For 4 years, I had believed patience was maturity. I had believed not reacting meant I was being steady. But Vanessa hadn't seen steadiness. She had seen a soft spot she could press until money came out. Monica came over that night, even though I told her she didn't have to. She walked in wearing sweatpants, carrying a grocery bag with paper plates, bottled water, and the kind of cookies we used to eat as kids. She looked at my face and said, "Okay, show me." We spent hours building a timeline. Not a rant, not a revenge post. A timeline. The original wedding budget. The agreed deposits. The first change requests. The withdrawal from the joint fund. The travel coordinator email. The itinerary showing the post-wedding friends weekend. The guest list with Caleb's name. The screenshots showing Vanessa planned to pressure me publicly. Monica made me remove anything emotional. Every sentence had to attach to a document. At one point, I wrote, "Vanessa lied to everyone." Monica shook her head. "No, right. This statement does not match the attached invoice. Let them do the math." I hated how right she was. By morning, the group chat had gotten worse. Linda had sent another message saying I was refusing accountability. Vanessa wrote, "I never imagined the person I loved would punish me for wanting our wedding to feel special." A cousin of hers wrote, "Edward, silence is not helping you." I looked at the screen for a long time. Then I uploaded the folder. I named it the part of the wedding story Vanessa forgot to mention. In the group chat, I wrote one message. "You all got the performance. Here's the paperwork. I won't argue with a version of events built for sympathy." Then I sent the link. For almost 2 minutes, nothing happened. No typing bubbles. No reactions. No angry paragraphs. Just silence. Then Ashley wrote, "Wait. Vanessa told us this was a required venue charge." A bridesmaid replied, "That's what she told me too." My aunt wrote, "Why is Caleb listed on this itinerary?" Caleb left the chat. That tiny gray notification did more damage than any speech could have. Then Ashley wrote, "Vanessa, tell me that screenshot is fake." Vanessa didn't answer. Typing bubbles appeared under her name, disappeared, appeared again, then disappeared for good. Linda jumped in instead. "Private family matters should not be turned into evidence folders." I typed back, "It was private until you made me the defendant." Linda wrote, "This is humiliating for my daughter." I answered, "I agree." That was apparently the strategy. More silence. Then the smaller messages started. One bridesmaid said she needed to step back. Another said she had believed Vanessa because she had only heard one side. Ashley wrote, "I supported you because I believed you. That's different from covering for you." That one made Vanessa finally respond. "You're all acting like I stole money," she wrote. I replied, "Money was taken from a joint wedding fund for expenses I did not approve, including a trip I was not told about. Call it whatever makes you comfortable. I'm calling it the reason the wedding is off." My phone rang immediately. "Vanessa." I didn't answer. She called again. Then she texted, "Please don't do this in the chat." I stared at that message for a long time because there it was. The same request she had denied me. Privacy, but only when privacy protected her. I wrote back privately, "The wedding is off. The accounting is not. Any remaining fund decisions go through written receipts only." Then I muted her. The next few days were ugly, but not dramatic in the way movies make breakups look. There was no screaming in the rain. No one ran through an airport. It was mostly emails, cancellation windows, uncomfortable phone calls, and the sick feeling of deleting a future piece by piece. I emailed vendors. I canceled unpaid invoices. I confirmed which deposits were refundable and which were gone. I asked for a full accounting of the wedding fund. I copied Vanessa on every message because I wanted no room for anyone to say I was hiding anything. The venue coordinator replied professionally and confirmed that the honeymoon upgrade had never been required by them. The travel coordinator sent a corrected breakdown after I asked for one in writing. It separated the honeymoon costs from the post-wedding friends weekend. The difference was not small. When that breakdown hit the group chat, Linda's tone changed. She stopped talking about love and started talking about privacy. "This should have stayed within the family," she wrote. One of Vanessa's uncles replied, "You brought both families into it when you demanded a public apology." Another relative asked Linda directly why she had approved charges from the joint fund without making sure both names on the account knew about it. Linda didn't answer that question. She said people were being cruel to a stressed bride. Ashley wasn't having it. I can't stand next to you in a wedding built on this. She wrote to Vanessa in a message I only saw later because she sent it to me with an apology. I love you, but this wasn't stress. This was a plan. Caleb tried once to text me. She said you already knew, he wrote. I replied, then why did you leave the chat when everyone found out? He didn't respond. That was the end of Caleb's involvement, at least with me. He had enjoyed being the understanding guy in the background. He did not enjoy being named in a PDF. Vanessa tried different versions of herself over the next week. First came angry Vanessa. You humiliated me, she wrote. You made me look like some kind of gold digger in front of everyone. I didn't respond. Then came wounded Vanessa. I wanted to feel chosen, Edward. Not budgeted. I didn't respond. Then came nostalgic Vanessa. She emailed me pictures from trips we had taken, our first apartment couch, a blurry photo of us laughing in a grocery store aisle at midnight. The subject line was, for years can't mean nothing. That one hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. I sat at my kitchen table and looked through those photos like an idiot, remembering the good parts. Because there were good parts. That is what makes leaving hard. People think betrayal erases love instantly, but it doesn't. It just makes the love unsafe. A few hours later, she called from a number I hadn't muted. I answered because part of me needed to hear what she would say when there was no audience. She was crying. I panicked, she said. You know how much this wedding meant to me. I stood by the window and watched headlights move across the blinds. You didn't panic, I said. You planned. I was stressed. Brides get stressed. You were supposed to understand that. I understood stress when you changed flowers. I understood stress when you cried over seating charts. I understood stress when you snapped at me and apologized later. This wasn't stress. She went quiet. Then she said, softer, so that's it? You're throwing away for years. No, I said. I'm refusing to spend the rest of my life paying for them. That's cruel. No. Cruel was inviting people to watch you shame me because you thought I'd fold. She started crying harder. For 1 second, my old reflex kicked in. Comfort her. Calm her down. Make it easier. Be the steady one. Then I remembered the screenshot. He'll fold. He always does. I said, I'm not marrying into a system where humiliation counts as communication. She whispered, I still love you. I believe that she believed it. But love, the way Vanessa used it, had become a bill that kept arriving with new fees attached. I loved you too, I said. That's why I kept trying to handle things privately. You turned that into a weakness. Then I ended the call. A few weeks later, the wedding date disappeared from my life in small, ordinary ways. The countdown app on my phone kept reminding me, so one morning I deleted it while standing in the kitchen waiting for toast. I packed the ring receipt, vendor emails, and fun documents into one folder and put it in the back of a drawer. I returned what could be returned. I ate dinners alone that still felt too quiet. Monica checked in constantly, but not in a dramatic way. She would text, did you eat real food today? Or do not reread old messages after 10 p.m. Once she came over with takeout and sat on the floor while I sorted through boxes of wedding favors we could no longer use. She picked up one little wrapped candle and said, well, this is depressing. I laughed for the first time in days. The fallout kept unfolding without me pushing it. Ashley and 2 bridesmaids stepped away from Vanessa. Some relatives apologized to me quietly, usually in the awkward way people apologize when they know they joined a pile-on too quickly. I should have asked before assuming, one of her cousins wrote. I appreciated it, but I also learned something from how fast people turned when the evidence appeared. A lot of people don't defend the truth. They defend the clearest story in front of them. Vanessa had understood that. For a while, she used it better than I did. Linda never apologized. She sent one final message through a relative saying she hoped I was proud of destroying her daughter's happiness over technicalities. I almost responded. Then I didn't. The technicalities were my consent, my money, my dignity, and my future. If Linda wanted to call those details, that told me everything I needed to know. Vanessa and I eventually handled the remaining wedding fund accounting and writing. It was tense, slow, and exactly as unpleasant as you would imagine, but it got done. I didn't get every dollar back. Some deposits were lost. Some charges were disputed. Some things were not worth dragging out forever. But I stopped the bleeding. More importantly, I stopped auditioning. The last message I ever sent Vanessa was short. I hope you get the life you wanted. I'm sorry it had to be built by making me smaller." She didn't answer. Maybe she had nothing left to say. Maybe she had plenty and finally understood I wasn't available for another performance. The strangest part is that people still try to make it about money when they hear pieces of the story. They ask if the upgrade was really that expensive, or whether I could afford it, or if canceling a wedding over a trip was too harsh. They miss the point. I didn't cancel the wedding because Vanessa wanted something expensive. I canceled it because she thought humiliation was a payment method. I canceled it because she and Linda treated my patience like a loophole. I canceled it because Caleb's name on that itinerary showed me I wasn't just being pressured into a bigger wedding. I was being trained for a marriage where my role was to fund the image, absorb the disrespect, and apologize when I noticed. For a long time, I thought protecting Vanessa's image was part of loving her. Now I know that if protecting someone's image requires destroying your own self-respect, what you're protecting isn't love. It's control. So the wedding didn't happen. The guests never sat in those rented chairs. The flowers were never arranged. The honeymoon never became a honeymoon. The empty date came and went like any other day, and when it did, I woke up expecting to feel destroyed. Instead, I felt sad, then relieved. And for the first time in months, no one was asking me to prove I was worth choosing. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.